AJ, is that you? Oh, hold on. It's connecting to audio.
And then half of these people that's talking about education.
Can you see him on your phone?
No, haven't been to school since Moses parted the sea. No, I can't. Oh, yes, I can see AJ. Hey, AJ.
All right.
Yeah, I can see him now.
Mr. Davis, is your audio connected? You hearing us?
No.
We're not hearing you. Oh, it
Okay.
still says connecting to
Yeah, it's
audio.
connected.
All right. Says you're connected. We should be able to hear you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hearing you brilliantly. Are you hearing us?
Can you hear us, AJ?
AJ, you're not hearing us?
All right. I can't hear you all, though.
Okay. He can't. No.
All right. I'm not doing
And I
that.
may need to take my microphone off, so let me do that. Hold up.
Sometimes when you plug in a microphone, then the audio is also trying to come through your microphone and you can't hear it.
Yeah, okay.
It's like trying to do two ways.
Can you hear me now?
We're
Yes.
hearing you fine. Are you hearing us yet?
I can't hear you all, though.
Wait, then. That's probably going to be me, Bill. You can't do it without.
Because as soon as I take that off,
You can't. Don't take it off.
yeah, we don't want to do that.
Okay, so I'm going to drop, and then we can go.
Okay.
I think that'll work best. In a second. Okay. Okay, go. Try
All right.
it.
I'm just going to try it like this. Are you hearing me through now?
Yeah, I still can't hear you, Bill.
Oh, no.
All right. But you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
I'm
So
going to stay off.
so basically, somehow, Jamil, it was when you were connected
Yeah.
that we get that feedback.
Yeah.
However, you've done this before.
Yeah.
Log back in. There's some button you need to push.
You want to try?
We've done this before. I'm sorry, AJ. We have done podcasts before. We are on episode 53.
I know. Yeah.
Okay,
you
so
guys are
hold
fine.
on.
Listen, I totally understand. I totally understand.
Wait a second.
I get it.
All right, I'm bringing Jamil in.
Okay, and I'm going to work on the sound. Is that it? Yep. Okay, watch. Oh, wait a second. Hold on. Okay.
All right. Testing?
Yeah?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we got it figured out, AJ.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys can hear me, though.
Yes.
We are hearing you brilliantly.
All right, good.
Welcome to episode 54 of Black, White, and Blue in the South, the podcast discussing Democratic politics with a Southern flair. I'm Bill Kimler,
I'm Jamil Brooks.
and we're coming to you from Greenwood, South Carolina, a little red county in a very red state. So, normally you would not have received an episode this week, given our bi-weekly schedule. But after our interview with AJ Davis last episode, Jamil and I were so pumped up, we continued recording for another hour, covering some news items that you'll want to hear. We shared a shocking story of ICE essentially kidnapping someone who was in this country legally. We did a deep dive into the destruction, cluelessness, and outright lies around Trump and Musk's DOGE. And we end on a somewhat positive note as we listen to someone who surprisingly had some solid ideas about reforming the U.S. Congress. So sit back, make sure you've taken some blood pressure pills, and enjoy the show.
For up-to-the-minute reports, stay tuned to this station. Now the news.
Jamil, last time we met, we talked about the fact that deportations have begun across this country.
Yeah.
And we had reported the fact that this was an initiative that was going to affect people based on the color of their skin, despite
Yeah.
the claims by the administration that they were only going after criminals. We had given examples where Puerto Ricans, who are American citizens or are U.S. citizens, were being detained and questioned and didn't happen to have their paperwork on them. Members of the Navajo Nation were being detained and questioned, and again, not because they were targeted criminals with criminal activity,
Yeah.
but they were just walking while brown. Well, now it's gone to the extreme. We have a real-life example of someone who was in our country legally and the racist policy has completely upended this person's life, and I want you to hear the story as told
Okay.
by his friend.
Okay.
You won't believe what you're hearing if you haven't heard this before.
Okay.
Y'all better buckle the fuck up because I have a story for you about my neighbor who was just detained and sent to Guantanamo Bay without due process. This is Elkis Martinez Gonzalez. And the photo that you see here is the same photo that is on file with the US government when they were granting him asylum in the United States. So it all started when he went for a walk in a park that I am not going to disclose the location of. I will just say it was in San Antonio, Texas, where this happened. My neighbor is from Venezuela. Now, he is here legally with a valid work permit, and he was here on asylum that was granted to him. His court date to appear in front of a judge for the very first time for the asylum case was going to be in 2027.
Wow.
Therefore, in the meantime, while he's waiting and is on temporary protected status, even though it's set to expire in April because he has a court date, he could still be in the country legally and work legally. So that already nixes anyone who was going to say, well, he was here illegally. No, he wasn't. He was here legally, the right way that you all want him to be here. While at the park, he was approached by Texas state law enforcement, not local law enforcement in San Antonio, but the state of Texas. And yeah, he spoke English, obviously, as his second language, but it was enough to get by, hence how he was able to get hired for a job, which he paid taxes at that job. And when you're walking in the park, I don't know, when's the last time you thought, let me bring my binder of paperwork with me just to go to the park? Because he could not provide the necessary documentation to show that he was here legally at the exact time while he was in the park speaking with law enforcement who approached him. He wasn't doing anything. He has zero criminal record in the United States and in his home country of Venezuela. He ends up here in state detention. While he is in state detention, he is not able to communicate with the family. The family just realizes he hasn't come home yet. What's going on? They are not communicating. So they start calling around. They call their attorney only to check the Texas penal records and see that he is listed there as detained. The family was given a bond to get him out of jail, which they paid $2,700. And once they paid that, the state of Texas has 3 days to release this individual. They released him at 5 a.m. on the 6th day, on a Sunday at 5 a.m., except they did not release him to his family. No, they released him into federal custody, into ICE custody. So now, here he is, detained at the El Paso Detention Center for Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. Again, not having had committed any crime and still has not had due process or even a chance to show his documentation that he was here in the United States legally. His family travels to El Paso to go and ask to see if they can speak with him or even just see him, only to find out that he has been transferred to Florida. He is in Florida. And what's near Florida? If you guessed Guantanamo Bay, you are correct, because that is where he was sent shortly thereafter. He had been communicating with the family, and today it is Thursday, February 20th. The last contact that he had with his family through an app that charges you 25 cents to be able to send a text and charges you about $5 for a 5 to 15 minute phone call. Yeah, they can't access him anymore. He doesn't show up as being someone who is in the records anymore. They have not had contact with him in 8 days as of Thursday, February 20th. They last were able to speak with him on the phone because he would call like clockwork for 2 to 5 minutes like he was allowed to up until February 12th. During this entire process, he has not had an opportunity to prove his innocence. He has not had an opportunity to speak with a judge. He has not had an opportunity to show his documentation or even be looked up in the system that he is here on temporary protected status, which means that you cannot be deported to the country of origin if you are under that status. So to everyone who thought that they were deporting the bad guys, no. They're deporting innocent people and not giving them due process when they're in the country legally. And it happened to my neighbor. When the state of Texas says that there are no ICE raids going on in the state, that's because the state is doing the dirty work for the government and then passing them over after the dirty work has been done. And yes, I was given permission by the family to be able to tell his story. I have also shared this with my local news outlets. I have shared this with my congressman's office. And I want all of you to please share this so that people know the truth about what is going on. They are sending innocent people to Guantanamo Bay. And it can happen to you and your neighbors next.
Wow. What do you feel after seeing that, Jamil?
You
look very tense.
Yeah, because once you go into a concentration camp like that, it's all bets are off. Like, that is probably the place where you can't even think humanitarian style thoughts. That's horrific. And you take him and you prevent him from proving. Because I thought over here you was innocent until proven guilty.
And it's not just him.
No, there are others. But here's the other thing. I believe because, again, we're dealing with a group of people, and right now it's Republicans that are in power. This is a group of people who will not show you when they screw up. So before they come out and say, oops, my bad, sir, we're going to send you back home to your family, who knows what's going to happen to this guy at this point? But like coming back home to his family, I believe the chances are slim to none. Now, I pray and hope they prove me wrong.
Well, there has been an update.
Where is he?
Would you like to see the update?
Please.
This is shocking.
I'm about to be in panic mode.
I have an update regarding my neighbor who was detained, deported, and sent to Guantanamo Bay.
Where you at, child?
This is him right here with the heart over his face. That the picture that the family sent me, this is how they found out, was through social media. No U.S. government agency, especially not ICE, has been in contact with the family about his whereabouts, but they can confirm that he is back in Venezuela, and the plane that he arrived on arrived from Guantanamo Bay. He has been stripped of all of his belongings, and the only thing he has with him while he got off of the plane is his prisoner clothing that he had while he was detained in Guantanamo Bay. Here is a video of him coming off of the plane. He is number 7 in the line. Check it out.
Venezuelan migrants arrived back in Venezuela after being deported from the United States under the Trump administration's efforts to round up some of these undocumented migrants.
Now, even though he is back in Venezuela, this is just half of the battle. I'm so happy that he is not in that concentration camp that is Guantanamo Bay, and he is back in his home country of Venezuela. But he shouldn't be there in the first place because he was in the United States legally. So now what I need help with is how to be able to bring him back so that he can continue working and be with his family that is here in the United States. In the meantime, I personally am going to be speaking with Elkis once he is able to access a phone, to be able to have a phone call with him to get more information as to what happened, what's going on, what did he go through, all that experience. I've also, again, shared this with my local news media outlets here in San Antonio. They are ready to also speak with him and publicize this story once the family is ready to move forward in doing so. But we want to have that conversation with him first before we move forward with anything else. All I can say is that right now, a lot of people probably feel helpless. They don't know what to do. But all I can say is do not let up on the pressure on the people in charge. Because if we had not been silent about things like this, he probably would have stayed in Guantanamo Bay for I don't know how long. But thankfully, he was able to get out. And yes, he's back in Venezuela, but he has nothing with him because the U.S. government took everything from him. I will continue to keep you all updated on the status of Elkis and how we're going to be able to bring him back to the United States legally. And remember, there are more of us people than there are of people in power. We're the ones that tell them what to do. They work for us. So keep the pressure on the people in power so that this doesn't happen to you or your family member or your neighbors, because nobody, especially innocent people who are in the country legally, deserve to go to Guantanamo Bay simply for how they look or the country they were born in.
This is not the country that I want from myself or my family or my children. This is not the United States that I have come to know and love. This is the authoritative, autocratic dictatorships that we have seen fail throughout history, where they're rounding up innocent people, stripping them of all their possessions and humanity, and shipping them off to other countries.
Yeah.
That is not the United States. And anybody who applauds what this administration is doing, shame on you.
And what's happening is, I try to say this in as easier way to swallow, but what is happening is people voted in their imaginary tax brackets. That's how you have Donald Trump back in office. You have people voting to make sure that in their minds that, air quotes, that no one is taking their money and taking their resources, because, again, they don't need them. They don't need the resources. But those individuals voted to put someone like Donald Trump back in office. And the whole time they are voting to eliminate the very resources that they need. And I'm talking about the white population that still supports Trump to this day. Every resource that black and brown people need, I need for people to know that white people need those resources too. And so you're proud to say that ICE came and pulled someone, a working individual who is contributing to taxes, that is living a law-abiding life, because there was no criminal record for this gentleman in these United States. If you can applaud that, you're still voting in your imaginary tax bracket. I need for people to stop acting like they got millions and billions of dollars and voting on that Republican ticket.
I just want you to imagine if your son or daughter were out walking through a park where normally they are safe and they've done nothing wrong. The state government, in cooperation with the federal government, essentially kidnaps you and ships you off to another country.
But I'm gonna tell you who needs to feel that and imagine that. White America.
Yeah.
That's who needs to understand what it's like to send your child out to go to the park to play and then your child not return home because the people in charge, the government, takes your child away from you. Black Americans get it. Now you have brown Americans that are about to get it. But to help us, because we are the minorities, it would help if more of the white Americans got it as well. It is the absolute worst feeling to know that when your child leaves home, or your spouse, or shoot, at this point, even you leave home, there's a strong possibility you're not going to go back because you're going to get caught into this windmill, this tornado of a system that is sucking out people that shouldn't be sucked out. So the emphasis here, I hear so many people talk about what we need to do. What we've got to do is that every white American, Bill, that voted to put that lunatic back in office, when they had black and brown co-workers, black and brown friends, when they worshiped on Sundays with black and brown people, if they were comfortable to send that lunatic back to the house, the conversation that we're having about what that gentleman went through needs to be had in the homes of those individuals.
Well, like what AJ said earlier, is that the MAGAs who come to regret it themselves, did you regret it because of the actions that are being performed or because those actions finally hit home in your backyard?
He summed it up. I've seen several TikToks of white ladies with children. And then I think there might have been, no, both of them had children on the ones I'm thinking of. They were upset because the government was making them, one of them owned a BMW, and she was having to sell the BMW because her food stamps got reduced. There was another one who was in jeopardy of losing her food stamps as well and was being made to go to work. And she said, well, I don't know if they know this or not, but everybody can't work. This is what I mean about we had so many people, black and white in this instance, that voted in their imaginary tax bracket. And now you're about to see what it looked like for you not to accept reality and know that you and people you know and love rely on some of these very same benefits and resources that are being stripped from us.
We're going to talk about that more in a moment. But to wrap up on this topic, there are pro-migrant organizations, a pair of them, that have sued Department of Homeland Security and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem have sued them over illegally revoking this temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of migrants. So this is something, to this gentleman's point, he says that they came in here, they followed all the proper procedures, the government gave them this temporary protected status, and Noam was quoted saying, "The people of this country want these dirtbags out." And so now they are being sent. There's approximately 607,000 Venezuelans in the United States because of the unmitigated disaster that Venezuela became. They were given protective custody here.
Yeah.
And by the way, these same Republicans kept pointing to the socialism of Venezuela as being a disaster. Great. So now they allowed them all in here and saying, yeah, you know what, now we're going to send you back.
With a court date of 2027.
Well, we're going to send you back to that same country, probably to your death.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they sought asylum here, because they came out of fear of their lives, and now they're back in that same scary situation.
We took them on the false pretense and set a due date for 2027.
That's only because of the backlog.
Exactly.
Right? That was artificially created by the same people in power.
Exactly.
Remember, the Biden administration, along with a bipartisan coalition of lawmakers, had a new border bill that would have jacked up the number of judges, jacked up the number of processors, get these people through the pipeline quickly, get them to the citizenship they need, accelerate the proper process, if you will. They said, nah, that doesn't work for us politically.
This
and canceled
goes back to me saying this is a party who is not going to say, oops, my bad. They will sacrifice you first before they claim responsibility.
Did you see the finger?
Yeah, I did. And I automatically went.
By the way, that was my favorite social media
like I
clip
that.
from that episode. I don't know if you saw it.
I did see when you were talking about, and then you went. You always.
That was I watched that 100 times. I laughed every time.
And I was like, crap, I wasn't prepared for him to do that. But that was.
All right, let me try this again. All right, we're going to talk about DOGE and the Trump disasters that are now rolling across this country. And there is so much here to talk about. We can quickly get lost in the weeds. So I'm going to try to weave a narrative here and tell a story that kind of ties it all together. As a starting point, I'm going to put up this screenshot up on our screen for us to look at.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right, this is a screenshot that came from the Greenwood County Republican Party Facebook page.
It did. Mm-hmm.
It's a graphic showing Trump's first month, quote, accomplishments. And the caption of this post says, "Tired of winning yet?" And in this graphic, it covers numbers associated with deportations, the number of executive orders, the number of press conferences. But in the center is the DOGE savings number. Mm-hmm. What's that number say?
It says $55 billion.
In savings. Mm-hmm. Now, forget the fact that we have several $1 trillion of debt, and $55 billion is like a nickel that fell out of your pocket.
It is.
Besides that, all around the country, this number, $55 billion, is the talking point by Republican lawmakers at town halls. By the way, those town halls, they're getting reamed by people who attend these town halls on both sides of the aisle.
As they should.
It's wonderful. Mm-hmm. But they've accepted this number, as a fact, and that's fact in all capital letters. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they were told that, and now they're just going to repeat it, despite all the evidence that has come out showing that this number is completely fabricated.
Wow.
So there's a great article by the Wall Street Journal, that liberal rag from the Murdoch family, who has an article called "How Much Has DOGE Really Saved? Here's the Scorecard to Date." So I'm going to quote the Wall Street Journal here in this recent article. "The Trump administration's Department of Government Efficiency touts cuts of $55 billion in federal spending, often citing canceled DEI and climate contracts. However, a Wall Street Journal analysis of government contract data, how dare somebody go validate this claim, showed a much different picture. Quote, woke, quote, cuts were just a tiny fraction of the total, and many claims of savings were overstated. While DOGE hasn't offered details about all the stated savings, it has posted a list of more than 1,100 canceled contracts to its website. Mm-hmm. As of Friday, It said the savings from these contracts amounted to about $7 billion.
That makes sense.
What's the number they're floating around?
55.
What can we add up? 7, right? Now, the journal analysis projects the actual savings could be closer to $2.6 billion
My goodness.
over the next year if spending levels remain constant, and about 2% of the funds. So now that's $40 million, I'm guessing, $400 million. Yeah, 400 maybe, out of $2.6 billion would have gone to contracts related to DEI. So it is just a penny, a fraction of a penny of this $55 billion that they keep running around with.
But Bill, listen. Now, all of us know that these United States was not investing that much money in DEI.
No.
Now, we got to know that. Even the people on the right side know. Even the biggest MAGA would know that if this is a Republican-led country, you know they not putting a whole buttload of money into DEI. So if your only response is to say, we saved about $55 billion and most of that is coming from DEI, everybody on both sides of the aisle should have went, show me. Because I didn't know we put that much money into it.
And they can't. Obviously, they can't. So not only is this amount a lie,
Yeah.
I'm going to focus on the fact that there's a lie here.
It's a lie.
The reason for the cuts that they're doing is also a lie.
Yes.
So they run around saying there's so much wasteful spending, and yet what are we watching? We're watching them release nuclear arms technicians.
Did you see that mess?
And then go, whoopsie, we got to hire them right back. They're letting national park staff go. So now the national parks are shut down. And just yesterday they said, whoopsie, we're going to try to bring them back. But they can't find them. They let VA, Veterans Affairs workers go.
Veterans.
Right? One of the most understaffed agencies as it is, letting thousands go. And then also USDA researchers working on the USDA researchers working on the bird flu. They were let go.
Yeah.
And how you liking them price of eggs?
Okay.
Right? And now they're trying to get those guys back.
Everybody to come
They
back.
are doing this at random with no rhyme or reason. And how dare any of them say we're going after wasteful spending?
And I'm saying you're going to, first of all, I don't even like to call his name because I'm just trying to figure out how in the world, we a family show, how in the world Elon Musk is doing all that he's doing. But I know that it is about payment, and I know that it's about a deal that was made. That's the only thing that would allow him to be given as much access as Donald Trump is given, because we all know that Donald Trump has a really big ego. So he has to stay in front and center of everything. So to share that spotlight with Elon Musk, I mean, what in the world did he promise him to have him to get comfortable enough to sit somewhere and let somebody else do the
There's
talking?
a new alpha male, and they're ranked solely based upon their level of wealth.
Yes,
And
yes.
so Elon outranks Trump in terms of wealth and now gets to control that administration.
Yes, and that is that is the issue here. We are being fed lie after lie, and these lies are easily fact checked and proven.
Story after story is coming out, from pink-haired liberals to red hat wearing MAGA faithful.
Yeah.
What they're doing is slash and burn without reason,
Yeah.
without research, without understanding. I wrote a Facebook post recently
Uh-huh.
on my personal page. This is how outraged I was.
I would want to.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, I have a political page that I usually do, and then my personal page is
Yeah,
for dog
you
and
do.
cat pictures, but
Yeah.
this one just blew me away. They have no effing clue what they're talking about
None.
when they declare they found wasteful spending. For example, and I've got several examples. One of the earliest ones were the outrage over millions of dollars of condoms being sent to Hamas in Gaza.
Yeah.
That was a quote from our president.
It was.
It was an anti-AIDS program to the Gaza province in Mozambique, a high AIDS area.
You wouldn't hear that, though. They wouldn't put that out there.
No, this was to the terrorists in Gaza, Hamas.
Yeah.
They didn't know what they were talking about. Another one, this was South Carolina's Congresswoman Nancy Mace.
Oh, my God.
She writes this outraged post that there was millions in science research making animals transgender. Monkeys and turtles and all these other animals. No, it was transgenic research, which is completely different from transgender, and a very cutting edge technology. But it was
Listen.
she mixed it up, and so she won an outrage. There's another one. Trump on Truth Social wrote that we were paying leftist news organization Reuters $9 million to study large-scale social deception and that it must stop right away. The truth? It was a cybersecurity firm called Thomson Reuters. Nothing to do with the news agency. They were a cybersecurity firm hired by the Department of Defense to prevent social engineering attacks, which is a very necessary thing in the modern world. But they don't know what the F they're talking
And
about.
this is why they don't want you to fact check. This is why they don't want you to. They want to
No.
keep throwing things. Here's his strategy, and then I'm going to tell you why I brought up Elon Musk and Trump a minute ago. But his strategy is to keep throwing so much crap at you so fast that you don't see that they really don't know what they're doing. And then you're just going to have a whole bunch of confusion, and then it'll be time for somebody else to transition in and try to fix it. But his strategy of throwing the distractions at people with the headlines is really effective. Here's how I know that he nor Elon Musk are true business people. In the business world, with training or not, you know that you have to first come into a situation and evaluate it. You got to look at what's being done, look at the practices and the procedures, and then you come back to the drawing board and you say, well, if we were to remove this, because we've identified this as potential waste, if we were to remove this, how will it impact that particular department? That is not occurring. So no matter what the right wing is saying that he's a businessman, he can handle this, every business that he has had has failed and needed to be bailed out. So what we are doing, if we are voting and supporting this foolishness, is showing that we truly have no clue about business ourselves. And we're getting what we ask for. If we continue to allow this to happen, no evaluation of the programs, no evaluations of what might happen if you remove a certain segment from that program. And yet, you're doing all of this controlling of the waste, but you ain't touched not one of them contracts that Elon Musk got.
No, those have remained untouched. And in fact, every agency that was actively investigating a Musk-related business, whether it was safety protocols in SpaceX or this brain implant technology he's got going on, anybody and everybody who was busy monitoring the safety of those things are now gone.
Yeah.
So he gets himself in a protective bubble.
Yeah.
And not a single dollar of that spending has been cut. So we've shown where the amount was a lie, that they have no clue what they're talking about when they claim that there's waste because they haven't been able to actually show where waste has done. Anytime they attempted to, they get fact-checked, and then they get mad they got fact-checked. So you've got Trump and Musk and members of Congress waving their ignorance on full display.
Yes.
And their supporters simply don't care. They've got the narrative they want in their mind, and no amount of facts is going to change that narrative. For example, here's an example of a disinformation campaign running rampant with claims about $600 million spent by the Department of Defense on sushi. Again, wasteful spending. Let's take a look.
The first ones that we're going to ask him about is why the Pentagon spends $600 million a year on sushi, when that's not even in like the top 50 of worst expenditures. Did you know that the IRS is spending $230,000 a month on cinnamon roast K-cups for their headquarters?
People like that guy are genuinely dangerous for American democracy because they get on social media and so shamelessly and confidently lie. Before this video, I was sitting here thinking, where did he get this information from? Why does he think we're spending $600 million a year on sushi at the Pentagon? And then I found his source. It's a post from a fake Elon Musk account on Twitter. He thought it was the real Elon Musk, and he took this information and ran with it. It reads, I told you yesterday about the $600 million per year the Pentagon was spending on sushi, or we also found that $230,000 per month was being spent by the IRS on cinnamon roast K-cups. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? He got duped by a fake Elon Musk account and then hopped on social media and spread this information for hundreds of thousands of people to see. Also, Google is free. It should become your best friend. I just did a quick search and I found 3 different fact checks from News Nation, USA Today, and PolitiFact on this claim. And what do you know? Fact check, DOGE didn't find $600 million in Pentagon spending on sushi. This is why it's so important to get your information from reliable sources and look into things yourselves and not get information from bozos like that.
But people only look for what they want to find. And we're in that society now where you're looking to say that DOGE is going to be successful with cutting costs and improving wasteful or reducing wasteful spending. So any headline that supports that, that's what you're going to look to find. And not enough people are going to dig deeper enough to see if the headline is actually accurate.
So to recap where we are right now, don't believe the numbers.
Okay.
Don't believe the reasons.
Correct.
Propaganda requires three things.
Mm-hmm.
One, the propagandist. In this case, Musk's DOGE and Trump.
Yeah.
Then you have to have the message spreaders. So we're talking about the Republican leaders, the congressmen and women who take everything that Trump and Musk say and then go out to their neighborhoods and communities and spout it as if it were try to find a better word for it, unquestionable facts.
Okay.
Then you have to have the third thing, which is a willing public to believe it. And we've got all three in play here. You sent me a clip recently that was on one of those talk shows, and I don't know what it was you were watching, but somebody tried to make the case that I don't know why he was complaining about what DOGE is doing because Obama had done the exact same thing. What were you watching when you heard that?
I know this is going to shock our listeners, but it was Fox News, and this was the Harris Faulkner show. So she has her own segment on Fox News.
Now, who's this?
Harris
Faulkner.
Faulkner.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't follow Fox News, but my client.
That's my first question: is why are you watching Fox News?
It's my sweet baby client.
Okay.
That's how he spends his day. So I spend time with him, and that's what we do. And in this show, she was going on about how DOGE was doing such a wonderful thing about preserving our tax dollars and cutting out this wasteful spending, and she just could not seem to grasp why Democrats was in such an uproar and wanting to protest and staging all these type walkouts and boycotts when that's the same very thing that President Obama did. But of course he wasn't president. She didn't say president. She said that's the same thing that Obama did when he was out in office. He said that he wanted to curb wasteful spending and nothing happened. So now that Trump's in office and it's happening, she said she's just wondering why Democrats are now in an uproar.
Well, guess what I have a clip of?
What do you have?
A clip of Obama speaking about cutting wasteful spending. So let's listen to what the president had to say back in the day.
Yes.
From the day I took office, one of the commitments that I made to the American people was that we would do a better job here in Washington in rooting out wasteful spending. At a time when families have had to cut back, have had to make some tough decisions about getting rid of things that they don't need in order to make the investments that they do, we thought that it was entirely appropriate for our governments and our agencies to try to root out waste, large and small, in a systematic way. Obviously, this is even more important given the deficits that we've inherited and that have grown as a consequence of this recession. This makes these efforts even more imperative. Today, I'm signing an executive order that builds on their good work. It directs agencies to slash spending in each of these areas: travel, printing, IT, because we believe that we can get better results for less using technology. And overall, spending in the areas covered by this executive order will shrink by 20%. And members of my cabinet will keep reporting on their progress to Joe Biden and ultimately to me.
All right, so I want to recap. He signed an executive order in 2011. This was after they're coming out of one of the biggest financial crises our country ever had, and it was Executive Order 13589, Promote Efficient Spending, and it was specifically limited to agencies' travel, information technology devices, printing, executive fleet efficiencies, and extraneous promotional items.
Those 5 things, Trump and Elon Musk will never cut spending in.
Correct. He didn't talk about we're going to eliminate the Department of Education. We're going to eliminate scholarships for black students to go to college. We're going to eliminate veteran services. It wasn't slash and burn of these agencies.
Yes.
It was, hey, let's take a look at the tools your agencies use and narrowly in that scope of 5 things, like printing. Yeah, let's use less paper.
Yeah.
I would say that was probably more of a token gesture, lead by example type of executive order in eliminating waste. You weren't going to get $1 trillion of savings out of cutting your printing costs.
Correct.
But to make an equivalence between this the Obama executive order and what Trump and Musk are doing is so far out of whack, it's not even funny.
However, this is Fox News strategy. It's a headline-based strategy that keeps working to the population that doesn't want to dig for themselves. So if you say Obama had an executive order that wanted to curb wasteful spending and you never dug deeper to find out what it entailed, you would think, yeah, that's right, the Democrats are just whining because it's not them. So far from the truth. Two different types of policies. And he said a systematic approach, not just going there with your eyes closed.
He did. Exactly. There's a difference between going at it professionally and being a buffoon.
Yeah.
And what we've got are buffoons running through the china shop, just knocking stuff over left and right.
Yeah.
Well, we are at that stage where people are starting to feel the impacts and they're speaking out.
Okay.
There's a lot of viral clips out there already
Yeah.
of former Trump voters or Trump, people said, I voted for Trump 3 times, but now I regret my vote. And I would turn us back to A.J. Davis's clip about that. What had you be MAGA to begin with before I start feeling any sympathy for you now?
Yeah.
But I'm going to take one of those examples specifically and talk about a news investigation done in Kentucky at a very poor school district that is starting to feel very nervous about what they're seeing coming out of the White House. So this clip comes to us from CNN.
Bell County, Kentucky.
Almost 80% of our students are underprivileged.
Blankenship fought for every dollar for her kids.
How much of this room is funded?
The entire room.
A third of all of Bell County, Kentucky school district funding in 2021 came from federal sources. So this district is listening as incoming President Donald Trump pledges this.
One other thing I'll be doing very early in the administration is closing up the Department of Education in Washington, D.C., and sending all education and education work and needs back to the states.
In Bell County, 84% voted for Trump, yet it deeply relies on federal funding. And that's not unusual. A CNN analysis found the 15 states that most rely on federal funding for its public schools in 2022 all voted for Trump.
And I voted for President Trump.
I mean, you're an educator. You didn't vote for Trump eliminating federal funds
No,
here.
I did not vote for that. I voted for President Trump to make America first again and to improve our lives.
Do you believe that he would cut funding for this county?
I want to say in my heart, absolutely not.
Girl.
I do not think that's what the voters want. If we have federal cuts, then that's going to mean bigger classroom sizes. I would lose teachers, first and foremost. It's devastating for this school in particular.
If these cuts happen, it'll be awful. It'll be awful for our kids.
Mrs. Goodnight, as her 4th and 5th graders call her, grew up in Bell County. Her son is a 3rd grader here.
They're not going to be as prepared in their adult lives. Just because they're here in Appalachia doesn't mean they don't deserve it. They deserve it just as much as anybody else.
My first position was a part-time custodian in the district.
This superintendent is still doing multiple jobs, taking on paying invoices and answering the district's phones just so he can save money on administrative help and send more money to his classrooms.
I don't think that anyone in our county wants to cut our school funding. I don't think that anyone voted for that.
Do you mind if I ask who you voted for in the election?
I voted for Donald Trump.
I know you did. I know you did. God darn it. Let me tell you something. Now, nothing don't piss me off more. So I was doing all right. Nothing don't piss me off more than these public school employees who went out here and went into that booth and checked Donald Trump. Now, that pissed me off. Like, you saw Project 2025. It told you what it was going to do. You had all the proof you needed. You serve these kids every day, and you know sometimes the only meals these kids get is when they come to that school. You know sometimes the only education they're getting is when they're in these schools. And you took yourself into that election place and got your ballot and had the nerve to vote for Donald Trump, and then gonna sit up here on these people TV and say, oh, that is not what I voted for. Yes, it is. You can't vote for one part of what he's going to do and not vote for all of it. If he says something that jeopardizes your livelihood and the livelihood of the people that you love, care, and support, then anything else that he says, whether you like it or not, you better not go in that booth and vote for him and sit up here talking about something, I voted for Trump, but I'm hoping that he won't. He is. Now what they going to do?
What I love doing a show with you is...
What?
Is that over the course of the episode, as you get more riled up, your voice affectation changes drastically. Got to compare your opening statements to just now when you are now completely on fire.
I'm sorry.
You are on don't apologize. This is the best part of the show.
Let me go back, because that pisses me off.
And it should.
And you got the nerve to be sitting up here talking about everybody will have bigger classroom. You think?
So we're going to wrap up with another clip that you sent me.
Which makes sense.
Which is very interesting because this clip was of an extreme right-wing MAGA extremist. I'm going to try to say that again.
Okay.
This clip came from a right-wing MAGA extremist named the Older Millennial.
Yes.
And again, I have to wonder, what are you watching out there?
So you have learned by now that I love to watch what they watch because I want to understand why they think the way they think. And so I do a lot of that. I do a lot of checking out what they think.
So this one is about 5 good ideas to reform Congress.
Okay.
And as you read the comments, you wouldn't know that anybody knew who this guy was.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you're telling me, Jamil, that you don't care if there's a good idea that comes from the other side of the aisle. You don't care what political ideology they are. A good idea is a good idea and can stand on its own.
That's called putting somebody in office who doesn't understand what bipartisanship looks like.
So let's listen to this guy called the Older Millennial, who's kind of big on TikTok. He was so big on TikTok that his original account got canceled, and he had to start all over anew because he got canceled by TikTok. But let's hear what these 5 good ideas are.
Okay.
Here's how I would fix how fucked up the United States Congress is with 5 simple rules. The first rule obviously being term limits. The people in Congress should be just like the president. They are only allowed to serve 2 terms. Then they can make way for someone else who has something else to say.
I don't have a problem with that.
Rule number 2, congressmen and women are paid the median salary of the state they represent.
Ding.
If the congressman or woman wants to make more money, they need to take action to raise the median salary of the people in their state. This will immediately guarantee that they understand the people they represent.
Makes sense.
And I know people are going to say that would be hard to do because they have to go back and forth between Washington and their state. That leads me to rule number 3. No more traveling to Washington, and also no overseas travel paid by the taxpayer.
Come on.
How will we accomplish this? Easy. We all know what fucking Zoom is. It is 2024.
All right, this is where I had my first objection.
Okay.
Do you not remember the clip I played for us in our last episode
when I saw that one.
of our state legislators on Zoom?
Can you hear me, Bill? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Wait a minute. Click the button. No, that's not it.
As much as I want to make fun of them, what did we spend 5 minutes doing when we brought AJ on? Right? We had echoes, we had feedback, we had what button to push. I can hear you, you can't hear me. We were going through the same damn thing, right? So as much as we want to make fun of them.
But listen to what he says after that, because that made me say, that makes sense.
All right, well, this is the first one I'm thinking is not something I'd sign up for.
Okay, go.
But anyhow.
There is no fucking reason for our representatives to be traveling to Washington. There is no reason they have to meet in the same fucking room. You just install big-ass iPads on each chair, and they can talk it out over Zoom. It's fucking insane that we are paying for our representatives to travel all the way across the country just to fucking vote. All we need is big-ass iPads, secure push-button voting technology, and video conferencing technology. 3 things we already have. As for the overseas travel, there is zero fucking reason for a representative from Idaho to have to go to Paris on official business. They are not foreign dignitaries.
Come on.
All right, well, I also disagree with this too.
You think so?
We have, at least here in South Carolina, a lot of business that comes from Germany, from Japan, and to be able to travel and advocate on behalf of business investment in the state, absolutely.
You want to send who we sending now to go do that?
Listen, if the business deal gets done, that's fine. I'm just saying that, regardless, let's say a good person's in play.
Okay.
All right? you want to be able to have the freedom. And no, you're not going on behalf of the United States government.
Correct.
You could be going on behalf of the state government trying to work a business deal for investment in your state.
Okay.
Right, I could see that.
I
now,
can see that.
we talking about, I think maybe he's talking more at the federal level.
That's
like
what I
why,
took it for.
Like, why is Lindsey Graham over in Israel every 10 minutes?
Exactly.
Why did we have U.S. senators in Russia
Yeah.
on the 4th of July
Yeah.
years back? This is under the Trump presidency.
Mhm.
Why are they there?
Yeah.
And so I think I can see that
And
point.
that's the way I took it. I didn't take it state level. I
Okay.
took it for federal level because I'm thinking I don't think Lindsey Graham needs to go and negotiate anything.
Nancy Mace was over in Israel. Why? She had to see something for herself? She
in
was
their
on
way.
fact-checking?
Over there in their way. Okay.
Are not part of some international peace corps. They are representatives of their state, so they need to stay in their fucking state. Now, if they want to go overseas on vacation, that's fine. They can pay for it themselves. But there's absolutely no fucking reason taxpayers should be footing the bill for representatives or senators to fly overseas. Now, without them traveling all over the place, that's going to free up a lot of time. And that'll lead into rule number 4,
Come
which
on.
is single issue bills only. Any
Somebody
bill
hit
that's
it.
submitted to be voted on can only be about one single issue. There is no fucking reason a veterans benefit bill
Yeah.
should have anything unrelated to veterans
Yeah.
in it. It should be putting up one issue at a time, voting on one issue at a time, and passing or not passing one bill at a time. Want more money for Ukraine? Put up a bill that is just the Ukraine funding. Don't combine it with some bill giving benefits to old people to try to make everyone feel bad and vote yes.
Yes.
If a bill or an issue can't pass on its own merits, then it doesn't need to be passed. And lastly, rule number 5. Anytime a member of Congress speaks to the media or the American people, it is automatically assumed that they are under oath and can be charged with perjury for lying to the American people. And if through a jury of their peers, preferably that jury should also be made up of the residents of the state they represent, they will be immediately removed from office. And that's it. 5 rules to unfuck Congress.
Read the top. What did the top say?
The world is coming to an end because I agree with all of this. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's legitimate stuff.
That last one, I mean, again, this came from one of the most poisonous, toxic accounts out there on social media.
And I clicked the heart. Yes, I did.
But this line, well, let's be serious. What we're watching here is what's called a stitch. So that means somebody, this is somebody else's video. This is Auntie Wiggs.
And Auntie Wiggs is very, very vocal on everything that's going on.
So she had to stitch with this guy.
Yeah.
And she's just making hand gestures and facial expressions throughout.
Saying, I agree. Oh my God, this is crazy.
I went looking for the original video because I wanted to give the creator full credit for his statement and not Auntie Wiggs flapping her hands around while he's talking.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's a lovely lady.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find it because this guy was so toxic. His original account got deleted by TikTok along with all of these videos. So what we just saw here with Auntie Wiggs is the only copy of this guy's statement out there.
Well, I appreciate it
Yeah.
because it makes so much sense.
So I feel dirty for
But-
agreeing with,
well-
I would say, 4 out of 5 of these. And I'm only weakly disagreeing on the 5th one. So all these points were fantastic, especially that last one.
Yeah. I think he did a good job with it. And that would be a great talking point for two sides to actually come together and say, you know what, I think this does matter. I think that we could.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Black, White, and Blue in the South. We hope you enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please, I'm begging you, take a quick minute and leave us a rating and a review of our show. It costs you nothing and it means everything to us. If you do, it'll help stop Jamil from getting sucked into the world of right-wing media. Sure, it may seem harmless now, but there's something about a daily diet of propaganda that just changes people to their core. And we don't want that happening to our beloved Jamil, do we? If you are a blue dot in a red sea, keep the faith. Keep up the hard work. Change only happens over many years of work and dedication. As the great baseball player Babe Ruth once said, never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game.